my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure,
stay calm.
everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Hello everyone and welcome back to Crash Talk. I'm your host, Ayana, and boy, do I have a video for you today. If you couldn't already tell by my arts and crafts over here, we're going to be talking about Teen Wolf. This is the beginning of my series summary for Teen Wolf. Yeah, I'm very excited by it. Do you like my shirt? It's slaying, it's giving. This series, everybody be patient with Ayana. I'm just gonna say that outright. Planning and preparing for just the 2 seasons that I'm gonna be talking about today took me months. Genuinely took me months. So shout out to any of the YouTube commentaries, Mike's Mike, those kind of folks who do this like as their regular thing that they do on their channel. Putting this shit together is no joke. Truly, it's no joke. So I'm going to do the whole show. It just might take me a minute. Like this is my magnum opus right now. This is my white whale. Okay, so just have as much patience with me as Moby Dick did, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Other notes. I have an idea for how I want to present seasons 3 on. We're only going to be talking about seasons 1 and 2 in this video, but this is just a good way to get you introduced, and we'll keep moving up from there.
Hey fam, what's going on? I hope that y'all are doing well. Thank you for your patience as I edited this quite literally 2-hour-long video. I hope that you enjoy. This is truly just the start of Teen Wolf content on this channel. I have so many ideas beyond recaps and whatnot, and I'm very excited to talk about them. Also, so random, but thank you for 100,000 views on my silly little Prince Naveen video. What? The girls that are barking, like, you get it. You get it.
Teen Wolf. Basic facts. The show came out in 2011. It ran from 2011 to 2017. It was developed by Jeff Davis for MTV, and it's based off of the 90s film Teen Wolf. The show takes a darker, more romantic, edgier horror direction versus the movie. And, you know, pulling that straight from the Teen Wolf Wikipedia, it's actually exactly how I would describe the show, so very excited by that concept. I love this show, and I'm very excited to talk about it, as you can tell by the fact that I'm literally already out of breath. Okay, other notes. This is a paintbrush. I don't have a pointer, and I realize that my arms are a little too short to get all the way over to Scott McCall on the end there, so just bear with me. Let's get started talking about season 1 of Teen Wolf. I am going to focus pretty heavily on the pilot episode of this show because you got so many storylines that you set up, you meet so many characters, you meet pretty much everyone on the board save for like 1 or 2 characters, and I'm going to talk about them as they pop up in the show. So let's get started. Season 1, episode 1. Wolf Moon. This episode starts out with our good friend Scott McCall, played by Tyler Posey, and our good friend Stiles Stilinski, played by Dylan O'Brien, going out into the middle of the woods to look for a body. Correction, half of a body. They meander through the woods, but Stiles' dad, who is Sheriff down here in the corner, catches them. He only manages to catch Stiles, so Scott is left alone wandering through the woods. Scott loses his inhaler at some point because he's asthmatic, and while he's looking for it, he stumbles across the body. The half of the body that's missing. He freaks out, stumbles down a hill, he hears wolves howling, he ends up getting attacked, he gets bit, he manages to run off, and everything is fine. Scott, I find myself in ridiculous situations. McCall rolls up to school the next day and is like, hey Stiles, this crazy thing happened to me in the woods, and you'll never believe it, I found half of the body, which is a crazy thing to brag about to your friend, but who am I? Weird things begin to happen to our good friend Scott McCall, because he can hear things that he should not be able to hear, like the voice of our good friend Allison Argent, who is the new girl in school, in the hallway talking about how, you know, she's the new girl and she doesn't have a pen, blah, blah, blah. She comes into the class and Scott McCall, who heard her in the hallway and is not freaked out about that at all, gives her a pen, and that's their little meet cute. Hooray. I love them. I'm so excited to talk about their relationship for the next 40 minutes. Other notes about the three characters that we have already met. Scott and Stiles are grade A losers. Scott and Stiles are truly supposed to be like nerds, giving very like gamer boys. They're also somehow on the lacrosse team, but they're not very good, you know, that kind of thing. Stiles has a crush on our good buddy Lydia Martin here. She's the love of my life. Everything that I say, everything that has to do with her, she is that girl. She is that bitch. And in the first season especially, she is capital T, capital B, that bitch, okay? She's dating Jackson, who is kind of irrelevant up until the point that we talk about lacrosse. And for some reason or another, Scott is all of a sudden good at lacrosse. Huh. That's weird. Catches the eye of these two, and also Jackson, who is the king bee to Lydia's queen bee. He's rich, he's spoiled, he's captain of the lacrosse team. You see the teen tropes, you see where they're going. So after all of that, and the fact that, you know, all of a sudden he's good at lacrosse, Scott and Stiles go back into the woods because they're looking for Scott's inhaler, because those things cost like $80. And Scott is telling Stiles about all of this stuff that's happened to him. It's weird. He can hear things. He's good at lacrosse. He can smell the mint mojito gum in Stiles' pocket. And Stiles, being funny guy, sarcastic guy that he is like, huh, you heard wolves, you got bit, and now you have supernatural abilities. Sounds like you're a werewolf. Silly, silly, haha, joke, silly, silly, haha, joke. Right? While they're in the woods, we run into another character. This guy right here. Derek Hale. Everybody give it up for Derek Hale. Nobody clapped, okay? I'm sorry. He doesn't deserve claps in season 1. I'm sorry. He doesn't. I have to be honest. He is posted up, just standing in the woods, as he does. You'll learn that in the first season of the show, as they try to pick, like, the direction for Derek, he's just constantly creeping. Constantly posted up. And then, like, disappearing into the mist. Like a fucking vampire. I thought this was a show about werewolves. They run into Derek Hale. He has Scott's inhaler, and we get a very convenient lore drop about Derek, aka his entire family perished in the Hale fire, which was very clearly arson. Only him and a couple of his siblings managed to make it out. He left town for an indeterminate amount of time, and now he's back, apparently, for some reason. Strange. But we move on. So after more Scott and Allison moments, including her literally hitting a dog with her car, and then going to Scott, who works at a veterinary clinic, who helps out the dog. When this happens, he flirts with her over the hurt dog, and he invites her to go with him to a party, and she says yes. Okay. Stiles, meanwhile, is investigating because he feels like there is something capital S going on. Okay, weird shit's happening, including the fact that the sheriff's station has identified animal claw marks and wolf hair on the half of the body that they had found originally, which Stiles tries to tell Scott about. But Scott season 1 is king of not giving a fuck about anything unless it has to do with Allison, so he does not care. Okay? He's like, I have to go play lacrosse. Obviously, that's more important than everything else that's going on. Including the party that I'm going to with Allison, who's super hot and gave me a chance, and she shouldn't have because she's so cool and I'm so lame. Right. So they go to the party. While they're at the party, Scott wolfs out and runs away, trying not to attack Allison. Allison gets taken home from the party by Derek. Derek uses Allison's jacket to lure Scott into the woods, where they both promptly get attacked. Scott gets an arrow through his arm because not only are there werewolves, something that we're learning about, but there are also werewolf hunters. Love that. So cool that now my life is immediately threatened. And the one person that Scott does recognize from this attack on his life, this guy, who we will talk about in literally 3 more seconds. So at this point in the story, Scott thinks that Derek both bit him and turned him into a werewolf and also killed the girl in the woods. And Derek is not helping his case because he's over there like, the bite is a gift. Okay, take it back, return to sender, I have the receipt. Just kidding, I healed super fast, so now the receipt is gone. Whatever, the metaphor lost its point. Back at school the next day, Scott, who only cares about Allison, goes up to her and is like, hey, so sorry for what happened last night. Can you forgive me? Can you give me another chance? Of course she does. She then gets picked up by her parent, who happens to be, can you take a guess? Can you take a guess? Good job. This guy right here, Chris Argent, is our dad of Allison. Retro raggy. We have got ourselves a Romeo and Juliet, star-crossed lovers, werewolf ex-werewolf hunter romance storyline to kick us off into season 1. And that's episode 1. We'll move much faster through the rest of the episodes. It's just that that episode has so much going on in it and you meet so many characters that it's kind of important to get through, but let's keep moving. So episode 2, the important overarching thing to know for this episode is that Scott McCall wants to do what Scott McCall wants to do. He does not care if that gets people hurt. He does not care if now he has a responsibility to other people because he has these supernatural abilities. He doesn't give a fuck. He wants to play lacrosse, he wants to date Allison, and he wants to live a normal life. For almost my entire watch of season 1, I could not understand why people were Scott McCallinators because I cannot explain to you how much Scott McCall pissed me off season 1. I was like, y'all are crazy. Literally, this picture is from season 2 because I genuinely cannot even bear to look at him from season 1. Now, of course, Scott McCall doing what he wants to do is not a good thing for our other resident werewolf in town, because if Scott wolfs out on the field at Lacrosse or in front of Allison, then he's going to expose not only him, but Derek as well. So what is Scott's solution to this problem of Derek Hale? Frame him for murder. Well, yes. So he enlists his good buddy Styles to help figure out what's going on with Derek Hale. They go back to the Hale property, which is essentially just like a burned down house and a bunch of land in the middle of the woods. They find this weird spiral that has a flower of wolfsbane in the center. They dig it up because Scott smells blood under the soil there, and they find a half of a wolf. Creepy. Pull the spiral out of the ground, attached to the wolfsbane, and when they do that, the wolf transforms into the other half of the girl that the police have been looking for. So now it's confirmed that the body that they found in the woods during that first episode was actually a werewolf. We find out later that she was actually Derek's sister, Laura Hale. So they call the police, arrest Derek. Seems like Scott's home free to play in the game and date Allison. Love it. Good for him. I also frame people for murder. No, I don't. Please don't. I don't even know if I'm going to include that joke. Derek tries to get Styles to convince Scott not to play. Styles is like, I will support you, but also can you think about this for like 3 more seconds? Scott plays anyway. He does shift on the field, but he manages to win the game and also rushes off the field into the locker room where he promptly almost attacks Allison. It's worth noting that by this point in the episodes, he has attacked Styles twice. And I just think that we all need to acknowledge the fact that Styles was a fantastic friend to this man. Because there are a lot of things coming that Styles did not deserve, and I just have to speak on it, okay? One thing about me, I'm repping Stilinski. Scott manages to not kill Allison, hooray, and he kisses her instead. Love that. Next fucking episode before I gag. So the next episode is all about packs, wolf packs. We open with a dream sequence that personally I feel like is unnecessary, but whatever, of Scott and Allison fooling around in the bus lot of their school, but it turns into a dream of Scott horrendously murdering Allison. Rut-row, Raggy. He wakes up, goes to school the next day, and is like, it felt so real, I feel like I killed her. She's perfectly fine, which is good. We're happy about that. But uh-oh, there actually was an attack at the school in that bus. There's blood everywhere, and the guy that was attacked is alive, but not doing well. So now Scott is like, I did that. Like, I know that I did it. It might not have been Allison, but I was there. Like, I know that I was there. Which means he needs to figure out what the heck is going on, because he wants to be able to date Allison. Remember, this is all about whatever Scott wants. And he needs to know whether or not he's gonna accidentally hurt her, kill her, whatever. Not to mention the fact that he's almost hurt Styles twice, but whatever. It's fine. This is also the episode that begins there is no straight explanation for Styles Stilinski, because at some point he asks whether or not he's attractive to gay guys. And a lot of the criticism for the show, especially during the time that it was actually running, is that they did a lot of queer baiting. And I'm gonna have to hop on this one really quick, because like, this man is canonically bi, okay? Jeff, you listening? Make him bi. You cowards. So I will be referring to him from henceforth and anything that he does as if he's bi, because it just doesn't make any sense otherwise. Thank you. Important information. We get a very quick introduction to this guy down here, Deaton, who is Scott's boss. He's the vet. He gets questioned because they think that the attack in the school bus was another animal attack. They come in, they being sheriff and team, come in and ask him some questions. He's not very helpful. Blah, blah. Remember how literally last episode Scott frames Derek for murder? Yeah. He shows up at his door and is like, hey, glad you got released, because they decided that the girl was killed by an animal and you're obviously not an animal. Werewolves. But now I think that I might have almost killed someone and I need your help remembering what the heck happened. Derek still agrees to help him out, which is very kind. Very kind of him, but on the condition that at some point he will owe him something. Of course, that's just the way that the world works. So Derek's coaching is to go back to the bus, use your senses, remember what was there. Like, remember what you actually remember. Scott goes back and he realizes that he was actually there that night at the bus during the attack, but he wasn't doing the attack. He was trying to help. Somebody else was attacking the bus driver. This leads to poke holes in his theory that Derek is the one that bit him and is the one that's killing people. This is not something that Scott sees right now, because what have we learned about Scott McCall? Scott McCall is going to do what Scott McCall wants to do, and that does not align for some reason or another with what Scott McCall wants to do. So whatever. In the middle of this episode, there's a group date that happens between Scott, Allison, Lydia, and Jackson. Unimportant. What's important is that we get 2 lore bombs at the end of this episode. One, we get the information that Derek isn't the alpha, this guy right here that we're looking for. He's not the alpha werewolf that bit Scott and turned him into a werewolf, and he isn't the one that killed Laura by extension. We also learned that his theory about what keeps you human when you're a werewolf is this idea of pain. So, like, breaking an arm, doing that kind of thing keeps you human. Cool. Introduction to the alpha. This scary guy are down here with my fun little question marks. This is the werewolf that bit Scott. Derek is looking for him. That's why he came back to town, because his sister, Laura Hale, the one that was cut in half, remember, was also looking for him and is supposed to have been killed by him. We also learn that there are tiers to the werewolf system in Teen Wolf. Scott and Derek are betas, which is a step below alpha. And alpha is obviously the most powerful, and they're the only ones that can actually turn people into werewolves. Scott is this werewolf's beta. He's a part of his pack, technically, which is how he has this kind of weird connection with him, brainwaves, that dream sequence, all that kind of stuff. All right, so next episode, we get an introduction to yet another character, and I think the last one on this board that I haven't talked about, this lady right here, Kate Argent. What can we say about Kate? She is bad bitch. Capital B, bad bitch, okay? The introduction that we get to her is her driving into town in like a Kia Soul. Shout out to a Kia Soul. And she gets attacked. She shoots at the attacker. It's presumed to be a werewolf. Derek is also here near the attack at some point, because I think the assumption that you're supposed to make about this scene is that it's the alpha attacking her. She shoots at it. She misses the alpha, but she hits Derek with one of these bullets, which is laced with wolfsbane, which is another little like lore drop in the Teen Wolf world. It's classic. Wolfsbane, poison to werewolves. It'll kill them eventually. This guy is poison right now. Keep that in the back of your head. Kate is the sister of Chris and the aunt to Allison. Allison loves her, considers her like a big sister. Cool. Love that. Per the fact that Derek is currently dying, he shows up at Beacon Hills High School looking for Scott to get him to help him find the bullet, the kind of bullet that he was hit with, because that's the only way that he can figure out how to get rid of the poison. He shows up, runs into Jackson, who's like, oh, you must be the guy who is supplying my good friend Scott McCall with performance-enhancing drugs, because there's no reason for him to be good on the lacrosse field now. Derek, king of I don't have time for this, shoves Jackson and like shoves his claws in his neck. Mind you, very gross injury, especially because his like whole being is just like radiating with wolfsbane. So not only did he have werewolf claws shoved in his neck, but they were also laced with wolfsbane. Yum. Eventually, he finds Scott and Styles, and he sends Scott on an errand to go to Allison's to figure out where the bullet came from and that kind of thing. And him and Styles go on a time-wasting joyride while Scott does that. Now, I need you to ask yourself whether or not the fact that Derek is actively dying is enough to keep Scott McCall from boinging his girlfriend in the middle of everything that's going on. So he doesn't find the bullet. Kate and Chris come home. Scott gets roped into super awkward family dinner at the Argent house, where at some point he does manage to sneak away and find the bullet in Kate's stuff, and he takes one so he can go to help Derek, who is currently staying in the vet's office with Styles. As he's trying to leave, Kate stops him and is like, what'd you go through my stuff for? Questioning him. Finally, Allison turns up and is like, it wasn't him, it was me, holds up a condom.
No way! No, I gotta take this off.
She kind of ate. I have to give it to her. Hey, I'm gonna be fair. She said, my man, you will not question him. Thank you. Scott manages to get to Derek in time. He shows a little bit of control with his shifting because he like drops the bullet in a drain and has to shift only 2 claws to pick it up. Derek ends up using the powder in the bullet to like counteract the reaction with the poison. He turns out to be fine. Love it. Happy for us. After all of this, we get a really great conversation between Kate and Chris, who are talking about the code that the hunters follow, aka we hunt those who hunt us. They don't just go around killing innocent werewolves. They only kill werewolves if they have taken a human life. Kate is not super enthused by this code. She's like, yeah, sure, the code. Like, set of guidelines versus hard and fast rules. Chris, on the other hand, is very much like, no, these are the rules that we follow because we're the good guys. And we're only the good guys if we follow these rules because that makes us the good guys. Sure. So it sets up a really interesting dynamic between the two of them that's going to pop up later. So I wanted to let you guys know about that. The next episode is called The Tell, and it has a couple of themes. So we've got lying, and we've also got more sort of horror, supernatural lore that we get. And the opening scene of this episode is actually probably one of my favorites of the season because we start out with Lydia and Jackson about to have like a movie date. And so Jackson is going into this super 80s, 90s movie store with like flickering lights and like weird noises and stuff. It's just so classic horror. I love it. Jackson and Lydia almost get attacked by the Alpha. They don't know this, of course. They just think it's a random attack. And they both see something. And that's going to kind of run as a common thread throughout the episode, but they just don't quite understand perhaps what they saw. Jackson is in full denial mode because, you know, he's Mr. Perfect. He doesn't have time for this. Lydia kind of goes off on a bender and ends up, you know, like skipping school, and also she gets put on like anxiety lessening meds. Think like Xanax to chill her out. Talk about a little bit later. The next day at school is also Allison's birthday, and for context for what Scott and Allison are doing for almost the entirety of the episode, just know that they skip school and are hanging out together. I will not talk about them again until they pop up in relevant shit, because I just don't care. I don't care. I'm sorry. While them two are canoodling, Stiles and Derek, both in their own ways, are trying to figure out what Jackson and Lydia saw. Derek goes to threaten Jackson, as he does, and he doesn't get any information out of him, because one thing about Jackson is that man is stubborn as fuck, okay? He does not care. Stiles goes to go check on Lydia, who is looped the fuck out, and we get a iconic line.
What the hell is a Styles?
And while he's there, Lydia gets a photo delivery on her phone, sure, and it's of this guy right here. It's the first picture image that we get of the Alpha the entire season. And Stiles is like, what am I supposed to do with this information? He takes Lydia's phone, as you do, and just kind of sits on it as trying to get in contact with Scott and figure out what the heck is going on. Another important scene for this episode are the parent-teacher conferences. This scene I think is fantastic. I actually have enlisted my friend Carrie to give me her thoughts about it because I think that she explains it better than I do.
In my opinion, this is where the show really starts. This is the moment that it becomes more than the teen drama supernatural setup that was intended. I think we really get to see the juxtaposition between who the characters really are and how they're perceived by other people around them. We get like clues to what their future plot lines and character arcs are going to be. I just think it's a brilliant scene. It's so well edited, and I'm going to be talking in particular about Stiles and Lydia because when am I not? So I think this scene is the first indication of something that Teen Wolf then goes on to do very well, which is set up and payoff. I made a note here that says when the scene cuts to the teacher talking about Lydia, she says, "Let me tell you, there's plenty to say about Lydia." And that was so me. I ghost wrote that. There is so much to say. I feel a lot about Lydia's parents coming in and being like, "Ugh, what are you going to say about her now? Like, let me guess, she's super distracted." And then the teacher being like, "Actually, she's a leader. She's a genius." That's everything to me. I also think that shot of her looking not well and looking at herself in the mirror and then redoing her makeup is chilling. It's chilling because you can just tell there's something going on behind those eyes and it's nothing good. She and Stiles are the two most misunderstood characters in the show. So much goes on in this like 2-minute scene. We get Stiles' first name tease, we get the Stilinski's wife lore drop, we get Scott's dad lore drop. There's so much. But let's talk about Stiles because naturally. I wrote the exact quote, which is, "Great kid, zero ability to focus, never takes advantage of his talents." And the fact that that is playing with the shots of him, of Stiles, like locking in on the police files, the way I feel about this scene could power 1,000 suns. And I think it's the same thing as the sequence with Lydia, where it's like kind of gets to the heart of the character. I feel like when I watched this, it was the first time I really understood his character as being more than just comic relief. I even feel that perhaps it was a shift in the show and how they wanted to present him. One of my notes says Dylan O'Brien gave them no choice. Like, yes, this one particular scene is such a clue that this show is going to be more than you think it's going to be. Also, we simply must very briefly talk about Melissa McCall being told that there's no male authority figure in her house and that's why Scott has problems. Shut up. Piss off. I don't want to hear it. I don't want anybody telling Melissa McCall how to parent. I just think that she's perfect. No notes. No notes.
We also get a scene where Kate goes to go pay a visit to our good friend Derek, who's still living in his burned down home. She lures him out by talking shit about his family and werewolves, and then proceeds to fight him and question him about who the Alpha is. And she's like, hey, let's do a little quid pro quo. Okay, a little, you give me a little something, I give you a little something. I tell you something, you tell me something. You get it? You know? She tells Derek that although, yes, okay, the hunters may have cut Laura Hale in half and used them as bait to catch him, sue them, they weren't the ones that killed Laura. They found her dead and then proceeded, So she's saying, hey, we have a common enemy, okay? This guy right here. So why don't you just tell me who this guy right here is and we can all go on our merry way? Derek, of course, as we all historically know, does not know who that is. So once she realizes that, open fire. She doesn't hit him or kill him or anything like that, but it's just like, girl, can you chill out? What happened to the code? Back to the parent-teacher conferences. Scott McCall is failing, so he should technically be at them, but whatever. After they happen and we get everybody back in the parking lot, chaos breaks out for some reason. Something is chasing people around. So you have this fantastic scene of people kind of freaking out, but you've got 4 characters who are kind of still in this scene in their own way because each of them knows something different or is thinking something different, right? Scott thinks that it's the alpha coming back. Allison is just kind of going off of the fact that Scott is chill. Chris also kind of thinks it's the alpha. And our good friend Sheriff thinks it's the animal that's been attacking people, which people have been saying that is a mountain lion. At the end of the scene, Chris shoots the thing. Turns out, yeah, it was a mountain lion. But of course, we all know that that's not what's been attacking people. So where did this mountain lion come from? Next episode is a lot of trying to help Scott rein in his powers. Shout out to Derek for kind of trying to help him out. Negative shout out to Scott and Allison for their extra forbidden romance now, because now Allison and Scott are in trouble and can't see each other because, skipped on parent-teacher conferences, whatever. Unimportant to me personally, but whatever. During this episode, we get an interesting development in what I would like to call Flat Tire Gate. AKA, remember when Kate showed up and she got attacked by the alpha? Chris comes and helps her out of that situation. And when they get home, she tells Allison that she got a flat tire, and he tells her something else. I can't remember. So she's like, that's weird, but just figures that maybe they got their wires crossed. Something happened, but she just doesn't know what, because she actually doesn't know anything about the werewolf world or that her family is hunters or anything like that. Allison now has to do a project for class, and we get introduced to this creature that has to do with her family called Le Bête de Gévaudan, aka the Beast of Gévaudan. Her family is historically French. They come from a historical line of werewolf hunters, and this is kind of Kate's initial way of starting to tell Allison what's going on. We're going to see a lot more of that. So I will henceforth refer to it as Flat Tire Gate. Also happening in this episode, part of the reason why Derek is helping Scott train is because Scott is actively being stalked by the alpha, who is, drawing fun little spirals on his car window, and it's a symbol for vengeance. So that's good and also cool and exciting. Derek tells Scott that he needs to stop seeing Allison because he can't learn what he needs to do while he's being distracted by her. And also, historical grudge with the fact that her family are hunters. And he's like, I don't understand why you think that this is going to work. If they knew what you were, they would try to kill you. What do we know about Scott McCall? Yes, king of doing whatever the fuck he wants. So he says, fuck that shit, Derek. I'm going to ask my good friend Styles to help me out instead. Styles, however, is holding on to a little bit of a grudge because during the chaos in the parking lot of the last episode, his dad gets hit by a car. It's not moving by very fast. He is okay, but he feels like Scott could have stepped in and done something. But once again, Scott is preoccupied with Allison, and he just doesn't get it because he's like, you have these amazing abilities, and my dad still got hit by a car. During this episode, Styles does help, but his helping does look a lot like torture. He attaches Scott to a heart monitor and has him pelted with lacrosse balls, which I've heard hurt historically. He also has him get beat up by a gang of random youths. And at some point he realizes, one, that Scott's heart rate rising has to do with him shifting, and two, unfortunately, Allison is his anchor. Basically, she's the person that can kind of calm him down and bring him back to earth and keep him human. I say unfortunately because did we need more fuel on the fire for their little forbidden love, forbidden romance situation? Meanwhile, our good friend Jackson is going through it, okay? He's like having weird hallucinations and stuff, partially based on, you know, seeing something, and also partially based on those claw marks and the wolf's bane running through his blood. Y'all remember that from a couple episodes ago? Yeah, not great. So, you know, shout out to him. Derek, in hysteria, is kind of on the burn bridges era of his figure out who the alpha is tour. He goes to go visit his Uncle Peter in the long-term care unit at the hospital. His Uncle Peter made it out of the Hale fire, but he's kind of just in like a complete non-lucid state. Like, he doesn't seem like he has any responsiveness. Sorry, my nose is so itchy for some reason. I think it's allergies. His Uncle Peter doesn't have any responsiveness or anything like that, so he's completely unhelpful. At some point, he also kidnaps Scott's boss, Deaton, because he thinks that he might be the alpha, because he does kind of feel like he knows things that he maybe should not know if he's just like a human. So that's cool. Stupid 1 and Stupid 2 also have their own idea for trying to attract the alpha, which is for Scott to howl over the school's broadcast system and try and lure the alpha out to come to them.
Are you like, I'm not trying to be mean. Like, are you dumb? I think she's dumb. I think she's dumb. Do you think she's dumb?
What were they going to do once the alpha came? Because your guess is as good as mine. They do this. The alpha does in fact come, fillets Derek like a fucking McDonald's sandwich, chases them into the school, and now we're into the next episode. Our good friends Scott, Styles, Allison, Lydia, and Jackson walk into a school, and you know how the joke goes. They get chased around an alpha for the next 4 hours. You guys know that joke. You guys know that one. As I said, this episode picks up right where we left off from the last one. Scott and Styles are in the school. At some point, a message gets sent to Allison from Scott's phone, and she ends up going to the school with Lydia and Jackson because, like, I think the 4 of them were once again supposed to go on, like, another group date or whatever. We also get weird vibes from Jackson towards Allison that kind of continue through this season and next. With Lydia sitting right there, why are you two flirting with my girl sitting right there?
Don't do it.
Beyond the alpha trying to, you know, murder everyone, Jackson is the true villain of this episode. His list of crimes. 1, as I said, he's flirting with Allison right in front of Lydia. Don't piss me off. 2, he tells Styles to call his dad at some point, the sheriff, and Styles is like, no.
What do you mean no? I mean no. You want to hear it in Spanish? No.
I'm not gonna get my dad killed, because he knows that it's not just Derek Hale, who Scott has thrown under the bus and said is the one murdering people and trying to catch them in the school. Keep up, okay? He knows that it's not Derek. He knows that it's this fucking filleting alpha that is chasing them around the school. He's not calling his dad to come to the school. Also, at some point, Scott is going to go face the alpha because he needs to get keys off of a janitor's body. And Lydia, as a weapon for him, makes a Molotov cocktail because she's brilliant, okay? She's secretly really smart. More on that later. She's making this cocktail and asks Jackson to hand her one of the chemicals, and he purposefully gives her the wrong one. So Scott goes out there with a Molotov cocktail that will not light. I'm sorry. Becoming an accessory for murder? That's how much you don't like this guy? That's how much you're mad that he has a pretty girlfriend and is good at lacrosse? Make it make sense. You're gonna go to jail. There's preying on my downfall, and then there's being complicit in murder. Do you know what I mean? Long story short, they make it out all fine, but now Allison doesn't trust Scott anymore because she's like, there was something weird going on last night, and I know you weren't telling me things, and I know that you were lying to me, so we're gonna have to break up. Jackson is jumping for joy or whatever. He might have been a little sad that Scott was still alive, but at least Allison's single, so that's cool. Is anybody hot? Is anybody hot? Just me? Okay. So fresh off of his breakup with Allison, Scott is freaking the fuck out. He is overstimmed in the club right now. And his list of crimes might grow larger than Jackson's this episode, especially because there's a full moon coming. So not only is he kind of freaking out because of the breakup, but he's like wolfing out on top of that. So he's just going a little bit insane. The episode title is called Lunatic, not for any reason unbeknownst to us. A list of his crimes as follows. He yells at random men in the woods. These random men will become important later. He is also mean to his mom at some point. Don't be mean to Melissa McCall. Melissa McCall, the woman that you are. I know I haven't talked about her this whole time, but she's a nurse at Beacon Hills Hospital, and she's everything to me. We'll talk about her more season 2. He also fails a test. What is he not failing at this point? He also kisses Lydia, aka Styles' crush, after Styles sent him to go ask Lydia if he has a crush on her, or if she has a crush on him. You're nasty. He also uppercuts Danny, who is Jackson's gay best friend and also one of the best characters in the show. Like, shout out to Danny. Shout out to you, King. I love you. And here's my thing. I personally think that Danny should have been Styles' first romance on the show. You can argue about it in the comments. I don't want to hear it. Another theme for this episode should truly just be Styles is trying so hard to be a good friend, and he gets his ass handed to him constantly for it. Does he, at some point in this episode, handcuff Scott McCall to a radiator and give him water and a dog bowl with Scott written on it? Well, yeah, and deserved. So, while full moon bullshit is happening, the Argents are up to no good. Allison is practicing tasering her teddy bear, self-defense, which is a good thing. That's a good thing, and that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is Kate once again in Allison's ear, flat tire gate. And at some point in this conversation that Kate is having with Allison, she plants the idea in Kate's head that there might be a second beta to this alpha werewolf, which is not good. Not good for the team. There's a lacrosse game later. Of course there is. The show's about lacrosse. We also get more weird Jackson and Allison moments during this episode, including a Kiki in Jackson's car where they're kind of like comparing notes about the weird shit that's been going on, and Jackson is trying to plant the idea in her head that Scott sucks. Casual things. Scott, who is freaking the fuck out, finds them, almost attacks them, gets tackled by this guy right here. Thanks, King. Thanks, King, for keeping me from murdering my ex-girlfriend and a kind of douchebag, whatever. Jackson later finds a claw of Scott's embedded in his car, and he starts putting the pieces together and figures out that Scott is a werewolf. That's a pretty bold accusation to make. Additionally, in this episode, there's also another murder. Remember those 2 random men that I mentioned a little bit ago? So they were killed. Styles, happens to roll up on this murder scene. He's like looking around through the police, trying to find his dad. He finds his dad, has this beautiful moment. It is ruined by these 2 bitches being in a car and watching the scene, because they think that, once again, the murder was not an animal attack. It was this guy. In the car, Kate asks, "You remember that night that I rolled up and I shot this guy? You saw another beta. The other beta was smaller, but could he also have been younger too?" So now they think that the beta is someone in this circle of individuals, someone at the high school, which is not good for anyone involved. Derek, after, tackling Scott and stopping him from killing Allison and Jackson, Scott realizes that he can't be this rabid werewolf and also date Allison. Like, he wants to be cured from this. Derek hints that one of the only ways that he's heard of for a bitten werewolf to be cured is to kill the one that bit you. This guy right here. If you help me find him, I'll help you kill him. No, we will not talk about the horrible CGI werewolf alpha looking out from the mountains of Beacon Hills and howling at the moon. So the next episode, we get Jackson, aka his own personal MVP, coming up to Scott and basically threatening him to tell Allison that he's a werewolf unless Jackson gets bitten by the same werewolf that bit Scott. There are lots of things that I've wanted in life, you know, all expenses paid vacation, framed movie posters of National Treasure, like really good brownies. What I've never wanted is to be bit by a werewolf. I'll tell you that much for free, buddy. And then this entire episode is just Jackson being a douchebag to Scott about the whole werewolf thing, and Scott being like, dude, this is not as fun as it seems, bro. Like, this is not as fun as it seems. So while that is occurring, we have to find the alpha. That is the running theme of this episode, is we need to find the alpha because the hunters are closing in on Derek, and that means Derek's gonna die. Scott might get implicated in that at some point and also die, so we need to wrap this up very quickly. But how do we find them? Of course, we need information. So option one that these fun little folks come up with of finding the alpha is to find out more information on what the Argents know about the alpha, which means getting this pendant that Allison has been wearing, which has like a symbol of a werewolf on it, and seeing if it has some sort of secret message in it, or if it has like, if it's like a locket and it opens and it has information, whatever. That's option number one. That's Scott's task. He's not very good at it for the entire episode, in case you were wondering. Option number two is to use our good friend. I should have put Danny on the board. I feel like I'm talking about him so much and I don't even have a picture of him on the board. It's fine. Option number two is to use our good friend Danny's supercomputer skills to figure out who sent Allison that message. Remember at the night school how she got a message from Scott telling her to come to the school, but that was not sent by her. So they, Styles, Derek, and Danny, trace this message back and figure out that it was sent from Beacon Hills Hospital, specifically from Melissa McCall's computer. Uh-oh. Spaghetti-o. Back to Flat Tire Gate. Allison has been trying to put together the pieces of what the hecky dizzle dandy is going on, what's going on with her family, what's going on with Scott, by association, even though she doesn't really know that yet. And she starts getting manipulated by our good old friend Kate here. This is part one of Allison getting manipulated. It's a little bit of a theme for her, unfortunately. Free Allison from her family members. There is actually, of course, a lacrosse game going on in this episode. You know how it is. And unfortunately, my good friend Biles Belinsky.
Styles. It's Biles. Call me Biles or I swear to God I'll kill you.
Is supposed to be playing in this game, but he's stuck trying to figure out who the alpha is and can't make it in time. Hate that. Jackson comes up to Scott at the game and is like, give me what I want. Scott's like, there are hunters. You're gonna die. You don't want to be a part of this, buddy. You can't handle this, buddy. Jackson gives us the fun translation of the fact that Argent means silver in French. That's cool. Also, while we're at the game, we get a incredibly important piece of dialogue. Just hold onto this in the back of your brain for later. Kate and our good friend Chris are chatting, and she asks Chris, can you be turned by a scratch? To which the answer is, if the claws go deep enough. Jeff, I see you. We'll come back to that one much later. Now that they have that information and Scott overhears this conversation, he's like, oh, fuck. They think that perhaps them two, the hunters, think that perhaps Jackson is the second beta. Inconvenient for us, because that means that we need to look out for him. Ugh. Oh, bro. The crowd booed. Meanwhile, Biles Belinsky and Derek Hale are at the hospital and trying to figure out who sent the message. Derek is like, hey, while you're there, go check on my uncle who's in the long-term care facility, find his nurse, she can probably help you out. He goes to the room that his uncle's supposed to be in. His uncle's not there. Your uncle's not there. Derek thinks for like 3 seconds, and then he goes, shit, it's him. He's the alpha. Get out. Oh, spaghetti-o. Peter is already up and moving, and he is, in fact, our alpha werewolf. Let me go get his picture so I can put it on the board. Guy right here. This is our alpha. Bonk. So, next episode. Peter is alive and well, spitting out quirky little one-liners, and has managed to somehow convince Derek, in between, kicking his ass the last episode, manages to convince Derek to help him in his vengeance journey to, get back at all of the people who had anything to do with the Hale fire, which includes figuring out which of the hunters set the fire, because that's been the kind of age-old feeling from the Hale family, is that one of the hunters set the fire. They show up to Scott and are like, help us. You're part of my pack anyway. We're stronger in packs. They're gonna take us out if not. Scott, being a rational human being, sometimes is like, no, leave me alone. Meanwhile, we've got lots of things, lots of balls that Scott McCall is trying to balance in his court right now. You've got the fact that he knows that the hunters think that Jackson is the second beta, and so him and Styles are trying to look out for Jackson. Is Jackson grateful? Obviously not. He sucks. You've also got the fact that Peter is now creeping on Scott's life. He takes his mom out on a date because he thinks that if he changes Scott's mom into a werewolf, Scott will be more convinced to join his pack.
Brother,
You're a freak. Also, leave Melissa McCall alone. That's my mother. Don't touch her. You bitch. We also finally get Queen Lydia Martin back, although it is in a scene that is kind of secondary to Allison, who remember Flat Tire Gate. Kate leaves out a weird arrowhead, and Allison finds it and wants to test it out in the woods. She does that. It's like a flashbang arrowhead used for hunting werewolves. Styles and Sheriff, our good old father-son detective duo, are trying to put together the pieces of the murders in town. Remember the ones that they thought were animal attacks at first? They figure out that, of course, they all had something to do with the Hale fire, and Styles is trying to figure out what other information that his dad has. He does pour him a lot of whiskey and feels incredibly bad about it. And you kind of get a sense that his dad has a history with drinking, and the fact that he lost his wife, Styles lost his mom at some point, and you don't really learn more about that until maybe even season 3, which is, they're building lore, okay? Allison, who has put together enough pieces about her family that she wants to, talk it out with someone, goes to Scott, actually, and wants to have a conversation with him, but Scott, of course, is distracted by the whole Peter, the killer werewolf, is taking my mom out on a date, so. Plus, at some point, Derek lures Jackson into thinking that he's going to bite him. Unclear what he was actually going to do, if it was just another sort of divide and distract Scott's attention strategy from Peter. Scott saves Jackson from Derek, and while they're all there, they get attacked by hunters. Scott gets shot full of lead and wakes up later on the operating table of the vet of Deaton. Hey, Deaton's back. Love that for us. This is now when we learn that even though Deaton is not the alpha, obviously, he does know about this world. We don't really know how much he knows about this world until I feel like more into season 2, which is crazy. Allison, who is once again just looking for some answers. Finally, the end all be all of Flat Tire Gate. Kate brings Allison to this underground bunker where she has King Derek, after the fight with the hunters, strung up like a Christmas tree. And Allison learns that werewolves exist, and not only does she learn that werewolves exist, but she learns that her family are hunters. It's also important to me to mention that in this scene of Kate, Allison, and Derek, Who Are You Really by Mickey Echo is playing in the background. See me bare my teeth for you. See me bare my teeth. Yeah, they ate. They might have ate with that one. One thing about Teen Wolf is their soundtrack is good as fuck. Their soundtrack is so good. Next episode. Okay, this is the penultimate episode, everyone. It's called Formality. At the end of this episode, there's going to be a dance. But first, we need to get there. Allison. She's freaking out because, she just learned that werewolves exist. Scott is still trying to protect everyone away from Peter, who keeps threatening his friends. Peter's whole thing is you need to kill your friends so that way you'll truly be a part of my pack. You're making the odds for wanting to be a part of your pack not good. Like, you're not making me want to be a part of it. Like, I don't even want to be a part of your little group, your little clique. Like, it's not sounding fun. We also get Allison doing a singular nice thing for someone else, aka convincing Lydia to accept Styles asking her out to the dance, which, you know, big win for Belinsky. Love that for him. You've also got Jackson taking Allison to the dance because Scott cannot go because he is failing everything. And he wants to make sure that someone is looking out for Allison because he knows that Peter will try and go for her. So even though that Scott is not allowed to go to this dance, what have we learned about Scott McCall? Oh yeah, he does what he wants to do. So his mom helps him get ready for the dance. She's like, hey, tell Allison everything. Tell her you love her. Bare your soul to her. That's what women want. And you know what, Melissa McCall? You kind of ate. He decides that's exactly what he's going to do. So he goes to the dance. He tells Allison that he loves her. And he's going to tell her about the werewolf thing. But she interrupts him because she knows that she feels like she can't be as forthright with him as he's about to be with her. Because she knows all this information about her family now and Derek and all this kind of stuff. And she doesn't know that he is involved in any of that. Now, a series of unfortunate events for my queen, Lydia. She wanders off to the lacrosse field because she's looking for Jackson, who has presumably disappeared. And there she gets mauled by Peter. When I catch you, Ricky. Ricky, when I catch you, Ricky. Peter, when I catch you, Peter. I'm not even going to say don't piss me off because you've already pissed me off. She gets mauled by Peter. Styles comes running out to save her and ends up getting there too late, but Peter essentially offers him an ultimatum. You can call someone to help your friend, but you have to help me find Derek. Mr. Styles Stilinski, you're just not winning right now. Jackson, who is consistently the worst human being alive, runs into the hunters in the woods because he had wandered off because he thought he saw the alpha and wants to still get bit and turn into a werewolf. Guys, make it make sense. When he finds the hunters, he tells the hunters where Scott is and that he's the second beta. Whatever. He gets Lydia to the hospital. We'll check in on them in a minute. Back to Scott and Allison. They wander off into like the bus lot to have a private moment or whatever. And Scott gets cornered by the hunters. So in this moment of trying not to get squashed between the hunters' cars, he turns into a werewolf and like jumps on the hood of it in front of Allison. So now she knows that he's a werewolf. Chris has confirmation that he's the second beta, and things are not looking good for our little crew. All right, guys, this is the last episode of season 1. Can you believe it? We're here. We still have another season to talk about, but at least we're at the end of season 1. Season 1, episode 12, Codebreaker, picks up exactly where we left off. Styles and Peter are together because, remember, they're looking for Derek. Lydia is in the hospital, and Allison has just found out that Scott McCall, her super cute boyf, is a werewolf. Back at the hospital with Jackson and Lydia, the sheriff shows up and is like, dude, what did you do to this girl? Jackson says he didn't even take her to the dance. It was Styles, his son. Rut-row raggy. Styles and Peter are trying to hack into Scott's laptop to like use the tracking to find Derek's phone if it's still on. Scott's username and password is Allison. Okay. During this scene, we actually get a really great piece of dialogue with Peter being like, it just as easily could have been you, to Styles about turning him into a werewolf, because he offers it to him. He offers to turn him into a werewolf. And Styles has definitely spent a good portion of the last season kind of feeling like the Robin to Scott's Batman. And this is a trend that continues throughout the show, is the fact that Scott can do these amazing things and Styles cannot. So I just think it's a really interesting thing that they start and that they acknowledge that this just would not be as, you know, happy hunky-dory, like I'm helping my best friend and so that's enough. And there is trepidation in Styles' eyes. So that's a thread that we'll definitely pick back up in season 2. We also learn that our king Derek has been projecting a little bit this season with his absolute abhorrence of Scott and Allison's relationship, because he too was once a young werewolf. He once was a young warthog who fell in love with a beautiful hunter. And that shit ended with his family dead. So at some point after leaving Peter and meeting up at the hospital with Jackson to go check on Lydia, Stiles puts together that Kate must have been the one to set the Hale fire. And at the hospital, Stiles and Jackson get accosted by Chris and crew, who are looking for Scott. To avoid, getting beat up, he tells Chris that it was Kate who set the fire. And Chris doesn't believe him, but about 50%. Part of him has been kind of seeing the way that Kate has been interacting with Allison, and part of him feels like his sister would have been capable of that, so he's torn. They let them two go. They come up with a plan to get to Scott and Derek and help him out, save him from the Alpha, blah, blah, blah. We'll check out on them later. So back at the Argent house, Chris is telling Kate that she needs to take Allison and she needs to go.
Elementary. That ghetto gotta go. Yeah. This is not married to hip-hop. She needs to go.
Kate is pissed off because she's like, we are this close to catching the Alpha and now you want to bench your star player? He is mad because he knows that Kate has been getting into Allison's head, and now he has this extra doubt, especially when it comes to the fire, which Kate doesn't seem to be denying very well. He sends them two off. They disappear into the night. We'll check in on them later. So now we need to get all of the main characters into one place, right? So Scott and Derek, after Scott rescues Derek from the Argent's den because Derek howls and Scott finds him, Derek is fully on board with taking out the Alpha. They get back to the Hale house. Derek is like, something feels off, something feels wrong. Kate takes Allison to the hospital to see Lydia, to see what happened to her, which was Peter's fault. And I'm sure that Kate knows that, but she is going to manipulate Allison to whatever she needs them to do. Allison then is like, oh, these are just kind of violent creatures. So Kate and Allison, who is now fully in psycho mode, show up, attack the two of them. Kate is basically coaching Allison to kill Derek and Scott. She doesn't do it because, even though she was happy to take them out, she can't fully pull the trigger. Chris shows up because he had a feeling that Kate was not going to leave and was going to try and go after Derek again. He holds up a gun to her. Put the gun down before I put you down. Okay, slay. But Rutro Raggy, Alpha Peter is Peter Malak. Alpha Peter is also here, and he captures Kate. Confirmation that Kate was the one that set the fire. Kate knows that she set the fire. Kate's excuse is she doesn't have one. He tells Kate that she needs to genuinely apologize, and he'll let her go. Kate apologizes. Peter says, that didn't sound very sincere to me. Slashes her throat right in front of Allison. Cool. He, of course, is psycho, so he's not done killing, which we all knew. He said that he just wanted vengeance for the fire, but we knew that he was just going to keep killing people. He is about to spin on Allison. Scott stops him, and now we've got a full werewolf fight happening here. Jackson and Stiles turn up, and guess what they've got? A Molotov cocktail. Look at them. Isn't that so fun? I love a little callback. They toss it. Alpha Peter, who's now in full werewolf mode, manages to catch it. Allison shoots an arrow through it, sets Peter on fire. One thing about Teen Wolf, I'll tell you that right now, they love to kill off a character in a way that feels specifically traumatic to them. Having Kate get killed by a werewolf from the family of werewolves that she tried to kill, okay. Having him almost get burned to death again? Yeah. It's called good writing. He is basically dead, not quite dead yet, and Derek is about to kill him. Scott tries to get him to stop because remember earlier when Derek had hinted that the only way for a bitten werewolf to be cured is to kill the one that bit you? Unclear whether or not that was a lie. We don't get to find out because Derek kills Peter and he becomes the new Alpha. So, beyond the chaos and the killing of the Alpha, there are lots of little strings which are setting us up for the next season at the end of this episode. For example, Lydia. She's not supernaturally healing. which means she's probably not turning into a werewolf, but there are only 2 options for if you get bitten by a werewolf, right? You turn into a werewolf or you die. So what the hell is she? Also, Jackson finally gets bit. Ask me if I fucking care. The Argents are now pariahs in this town because the police end up pinning all of the murders onto Kate. Very convenient. She's dead. We end the season with Scott and Allison on the roof of Allison's house, canoodling under the moon. And that's season 1 of Teen Wolf. Guys, okay, I feel obligated to mention here the little mini-series that came out, which was called The Search for a Cure, which starred Scott Stiles and Tyler Posey's dad as like a doctor turned supernatural enthusiast. It is technically canon because it was developed by Jeff Davis, but it doesn't, you like don't need to know about it to enjoy the show, obviously, because I didn't know about it until literally maybe like 2 months ago. But it is just a fun insert into the Teen Wolf world. If you've ever seen edits of Styles Stilinski with a snapback on, that's what that's from. So you can find all of it on YouTube in case you want to watch it. All right, guys, are you seated? Are you strapped in, ready for season 2? I hope you had a little bathroom break, got a little water. I got a little water, had a little bathroom break. Do you have a snack? What are you eating? Is it good? Okay, sorry. So as you can see, I've made some updates to the board. We've got our new characters. We've got our new villain. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to chit chat about this next era. Season 2, episode 1, Omega. We start off almost exactly where we left off, except for obviously, as you can see on the board, we have some new characters. I'll introduce them as we get to them. You know the drill by now. So let's do a little recap of where our main characters are at right now. Scott and Allison are still dating in secret, but Chris caught them and has forced them to stop dating, or else he has threatened to kill Scott. Love that. Styles is Styles. Derek is Alpha. And Peter, who is no longer on the board, is no longer with us. Kate, who is no longer on the board, is no longer with us. Lydia, remember, is in the hospital after she got mauled by Peter. And Jackson has been bit, and guess we'll see if he turns into a werewolf or dies. And that's where we pick up. Back to the hospital with Lydia, who is at least up and moving after her attack from Peter. But she's hallucinating things and ends up bolting out of the hospital butt naked. Love that for her. By love that for her, I mean, Peter, when I catch you, Peter, don't fucking piss me off. We get our first new character of the season We get our first new character of the season literally in season 2, episode 1. We're so blessed. Isaac. I do have a big smile on my face when I talk about Isaac. He is one of my favorite characters on the show. Though I will say Teen Wolf is a show with an ensemble cast that you end up just like loving. Like you just kind of love everyone on the show, which is amazing. Part of why I really like the show. Back to Isaac. I'm so sorry I just talked over you. Isaac is our first new character on the show. He is Scott and Styles and everyone's age. He goes to the same high school, and he digs graves in his father's graveyard for not a living because he's a teenager, but he does that. And while he's there, he gets sort of attacked and gets knocked into a grave that he's been digging and gets helped out by none other than creepy posted up in places that he shouldn't be, Derek Hale. Yes, he will continue being creepy this season. Everybody give a round of applause for that. So while Lydia is still MIA somewhere in Beacon Hills, somewhere in the woods of Beacon Hills, Jackson is also randomly going through it now because he got bit, but his body is rejecting the bite. They don't know why. He doesn't know why. He doesn't know what's going on. That will become a thread that we will touch on later. Also, the running theory about what's going on with Lydia is that she's turning into a werewolf. So they're trying to figure out what she's up to by thinking back to what was happening to Scott when he was turning into a werewolf, which we all know was him just thinking about Allison. So I don't know where this thought process they thought was going to get them, but we live, laugh, and also love. As this is happening, there are things going missing from graveyards, aka someone stole a dead body's liver, and also there's an attack on an ambulance as well, and that just like sends blood everywhere. But that wasn't Lydia. It was actually an Omega, a werewolf that is a lone wolf, has no pack. This Omega ends up being caught by the hunters, aka Chris, and this new character, Gerard, who is Allison's grandfather. He comes into town for Kate's funeral. Remember, Kate no longer with us. And they cut that lone wolf in half. Yeah, signature move of the hunters to do that. Hey, stop that. Get some help. Now, this guy. This man right here. Never in my life have I yelled at a girl like this. We'll talk about him more later, but just know, he's the top of my op list. Derek and Scott see the hunters cut this Omega in half, and Derek knows what this is. The hunters are declaring war. He knows that no matter what, they're not going to be safe, especially now that Gerard is here. Did I call him Jared a second ago? And now, of course, Scott and Allison are going to be caught in the middle of this. I really love the season opener because it sets up everybody's path in a really interesting direction. You've got Scott and Allison, of course, still being star-crossed lovers, but also now Scott is being a little bit more responsible with the fact that he's a werewolf. So now we have to see how he's going to fall with these battle lines that are being drawn. Styles, of course, he still kind of feels like a tertiary character. We'll get more on him later. Lydia, what the hell is going on with her? Jackson, what the hell is going on with him? And now we have the introduction of all these other players. So let's talk about them. Season 2, episode 2 is called Shape Shifted. This episode is a super Isaac-centric episode, which is great because he's a new character, so we get to learn a lot about him. The first thing that we learn about him is that he's actually been being abused by his father, who is, as I mentioned, the owner of this graveyard, and also, I don't think that there's anything else that you need to know about him, but so we learn that about him. We also learn that he has been turned into a werewolf by none other than Mr. Creepy himself, and this information we find out through an incredibly silly scene, aka Mr. Scott McCall realizing through scent that there is another werewolf on the team, but he can't quite figure out who it is, so he proceeds to tackle everyone on his team and sniff their neck to try and figure out if they're a werewolf or not.
It's Armani.
Huh?
My aftershave. Armani.
Oh. It's nice.
He also gets arrested, all in the same episode, because Jackson actually happens to be his next door neighbor, and Mr. Leahy Sr., if you will, has turned up dead, and Jackson tells the police, aka sheriff, that Isaac has been being abused for years, so that implicates him as suspect number 1 in his father's death. Fucking unfortunate, if you ask me. This is incredibly not good because not only does Scott now know that he's a werewolf, but somehow the hunters know that he's been turned into a werewolf, and they're gonna kill him. They're gonna kill him. They are not gonna wait for evidence of whether or not he did actually kill his dad, because remember, Gerard and Hunter reinforcements are here, and their MO is just kill him. If they turn out to be innocent later, then they could have been bad later down the road, so you still have done a service, which is crazy, by the way. Remember the code from the first season? Yeah, does not seem to apply. Meanwhile, Lydia has been found and is back in school, but now she's kind of seen as like the town crazy a little bit because she went into like a fugue state and had been wandering in the woods for 2 days. But one thing about Lydia is that she will never not be a bad bitch. She will never not serve, okay? Put some respect on her name. So after Isaac gets arrested, Derek enlists the help of Scott, of course, to help try and get him out. And, by proxy, enlists the help of Styles as well. Allison is also kind of involved in this because she tells Scott and Styles, and by proxy Derek, that she saw someone from her house leave to go to the sheriff's station, and she's assuming that they're going to kill Isaac. And just keep in mind the 4 of them, but also more specifically the 3 of them, because they become like the crime fighting trio of this season, which is an interesting dynamic if you ask me. So while trying to figure out a way to stop Isaac's death, Allison actually ends up getting attacked by something. They don't know what it is. And it doesn't kill her. She's fine. They also managed to stop Isaac from being killed. Love that. So the next episode starts off with Allison finally beginning her hunter training, aka she gets fake kidnapped and trapped in the Hale house, and she has to like saw her way through some ropes binding her hands with an arrowhead. Like, I'm trying to think of a joke, and I literally can't even think of a joke. Me when my dad says he wants to hang out with me, so he fake kidnaps me and gives me an arrowhead and tells me that I have to escape. It takes me 2.5 hours to do it. And in this scene, we also find out that the Hunter Society is actually matriarchal. So it's the women in the family that make all of the decisions, which I think is super interesting because in this season, we learn a lot more about Allison's mom, who we haven't really talked about this whole time. She's kind of been a background player because she doesn't really go out on hunts and stuff like that. But we're to assume that she's actually been the one that's kind of been calling the shots for a while. Although I will say that idea gets tested a little bit because you have Gerard. I keep wanting to call him Jared. You have Gerard coming in, and he seems to upset that balance. So the hunter that's supposed to be standing guard of Allison while she tries to escape gets murdered after she escapes, and that means that this whole, monster thing is now #the hunter's problem because it killed one of their own. They originally think that it's a werewolf that killed them, but the body does not look like what a werewolf does. And so they kind of have an idea that there's something out there that is killing that is not a werewolf. They just don't know what it is. Meanwhile, Derek, who can feel that the tides are shifting between the hunters and the werewolves, is actively being the worst human being alive, aka trying to build a pack by preying on vulnerable high schoolers.
Black eyelashes, blank stare.
And the Derekinators, where were you when he was exhibiting this behavior? He is an antagonist of this season. One of the things that I really love about Teen Wolf is that they do a really great job of establishing multiple villains and multiple antagonists in a season. There are times when you have really interesting dynamics between characters. Like, you have times when Scott and Derek are teaming up for something because their interests align, but not necessarily their morals. And I think the idea of thinking about like antagonists versus villains, I'm super interested in that as someone who loves storytelling and, is a bit of an English nerd. And I think that Teen Wolf does it really well, and they had been doing it since the beginning of the show. So just wanted to put that out there. Speaking of Derek, the fucking creep, we get 2 new character introductions with Derek being a freak. Erica, number 1. So Erica is a teenager. She suffers from epilepsy, and that makes other people make fun of her. You guys are going to ableism school. Boyd, who is kind of stereotypical black male teenager, it's implied that he's from like a less fortunate home. He like rides the bus to school and like eats alone and stuff like that. Jeff, we need to go to stereotype school. Derek turns the 2 of them into werewolves. Scott is trying to stop this from happening because he's like, hey, there's no way that you're telling them all the information that they need to know to make a good decision about this right now when there are people actively trying to kill them. In between all of this, Scott, Styles, Allison, and Lydia also have like a double date to an ice hockey rink. Okay. After Lydia exhibits some pretty impressive ice skating moves, she also hallucinates a flower and a dead Peter underneath the ice and starts screaming. Yeah, it's not looking good for her. She is not doing well. So the next episode, we get to learn more information about this guy right here, AKA Styles goes to the mechanic shop where instead of his car getting fixed and also needing more repair than he thought originally, everybody say, hey, Roscoe. The mechanic that's working on his car gets attacked by this thing and then crushed by the like car uppy downy thing. I know technical terms. Styles witnesses this. He also touches the like venom of this creature. It like secretes this goo which can paralyze you from like the neck down, so you can't move. So that's new information about this thing. Werewolves don't have that. That sucks. Paralytic goo does not sound good for anyone, so they know it's not a wolf. While they're trying to figure out what this thing is, Derek tells, Dumbelina 1 and 2, that the Argent family has a bestiary, which is essentially just a book full of all the mythological creatures that they've come across in their years of being a hunter, in their years of being hunters, and of course they do. So now we've got to hunt for this bestiary. Lydia is also not doing well. She's hallucinating more. She accidentally hurts herself while she's like in the middle of one of these hallucinations or something. So she gets sent to the guidance counselor who is trying to help her out, but Lydia is quite stubborn and doesn't really believe that there's anything wrong with her, or at least she's not giving up her bad bitch card to try and figure it out. Somebody tell Lydia that therapy does not take away your bad bitch card. It actually enhances your bad bitch card. I would know. I think it's worth noting that the guidance counselor, her name is Miss Marin. She is Maya from Pretty Little Liars. We see you, girl. Don't think you're gonna escape Rosewood that easily. Meanwhile, Jackson enlists the help of our good friend Danny. Shout out to Danny, to help him recover 2 hours of footage that's missing from that night of the full moon that he thought he was going to turn into a werewolf. So he borrowed a camera from this weird guy named Matt, more on him later, and he filmed himself in his bed during the full moon, except for he thought that nothing actually happened because there was nothing in the footage, but then he finds out that there were 2 hours of footage missing. I mentioned that, didn't I? Oh, I didn't? Okay, well, now you know. They discovered that there were 2 hours of footage missing, and now they're on a quest to figure out, 1, if they can recover the footage, and 2, who messed with the tape and what happened to Jackson that night. But more important than that, in the Teen Wolf universe, in the Beacon Hills High universe, there's a lacrosse game. This team is super difficult. They have this one just like giant dude on the team that they call the Abomination, which feels rude, but never fear, because even though they are down a player, Boyd happens to be in the audience, and so he is going to play. Scott tells him not to because he might shift on the field. Does that feel like it echoes anything? Scott tells him not to because he's going to shift on the field. He plays anyway, and it's actually not Boyd who gets exposed to the hunters, aka Gerard and Chris, on the field. It's Scott who gets his leg broken, but it immediately starts healing. So later on, we get a scene where Gerard shoves a fucking knife into Scott because he's like, found your little secret, bud.
Let me see what you have. No!
And you're gonna do exactly what I tell you to do, or else I'm gonna hurt your mom. Queen Melissa McCall, note her crown. Also, meanwhile, remember, we're still looking for the bestiary, which Allison thinks that Gerard either keeps in his office or on his person. So Styles and Derek are looking for it while they're at the school, looking for it instead of being at the lacrosse game. This guy shows up. He attacks the two of them. They get trapped in the water. Derek gets paralyzed, and so Styles is like holding him afloat in 8 feet of water. This thing doesn't come after them. So we learn a couple of interesting things about the Kanima during this episode. First of all, we learn what it is, which is the Kanima. We didn't need the bestiary for this. Derek figures it out through a couple of different things. 2, this thing is afraid of water, or it can't swim. More on that later. The next episode 5. I'm like motoring through this. The next episode 5, is called Venomous, and the theme of this episode is a snake cannot be poisoned by its own venom. I don't know if that's factually accurate. Are there any biologists in the chat? Can we confirm? But basically, Derek has figured out that this thing is the Kanima, and so now he's trying to narrow down who it is, and his idea is to test people with the venom of the Kanima because he thinks that whoever it is shouldn't be affected by the venom. First target, Jackson. He makes Jackson eat some of the venom. Jackson gets paralyzed. He gets knocked out of the list. Next up, we have Lydia. Because remember, she got bit by a werewolf and she didn't turn into anything. He also, obviously bit Jackson as well, which is why he tests him first, because he also didn't turn into anything. And there's this idea that if Lydia isn't a werewolf and, we're about to figure out if she's the Kanima, there's maybe an idea that she's immune. Jackson thinks that maybe somehow she passed this immunity to him like a fucking STD.
Oh, hell no! And show y'all bitches something. I will tear some shit up. I swear to God.
What you're gonna do is put some respect on my girl's name. Don't piss me off. Don't piss me off, Jackson. You're on thin fucking ice. So as I mentioned, Lydia is next up on the list. Erica and Isaac are in their, villain era. AKA, they got hot people makeovers and leather jackets and are gonna take out all their frustration from being, I guess, fucking bullied at high school now on killing Lydia. Can y'all go to therapy? People put on some red lipstick and then just go wild. They test Lydia. She does not pass. She doesn't get paralyzed by the venom, even though she eats it. So now the crime-fighting trio are like, fuck, we have to protect Lydia because Derek's gonna kill her. His plan is not to negotiate. It is to murder her. So they are trying to protect Lydia the whole time, not telling her what's going on. They take Lydia and also Jackson to help convince Lydia back to Scott's house, and they're holding up in there. Scott, meanwhile, is trying to figure out a way to save her. There's got to be a way that we can figure this out without having to kill her. One of the ways that he is trying to save her is to figure out any information on the Kanima, and so he sends Allison to get a translation from Mrs. Marin from the bestiary, which I think it's in either ancient French or Latin, I can't remember. The translation says that the Kanima seeks a friend. So that's the information that they're going off of. It's this idea that it has to do with trauma and it's lonely or something like that. They don't really know how they're going to put that together, but that's all that they know right now. And two, from this conversation and just more facts that we learn about the Kanima, we learn that there is a third option of what happens when you're bit by a werewolf or whatever, is that 1, you might turn into a werewolf, 2, you might die, but 3, sometimes the shape you take reflects the person you are. Interesting. Back at Scott's, Jackson asks Lydia for his house key back, which he had given to her when they were cutesy and in love, but they're no longer cutesy and in love. But Lydia still obviously loves him and is quite affronted by the fact that he is asking for his house key back. She doesn't understand why. Derek is posted up outside of her house with Isaac and Erica. There's a fight that happens in between them at some point, which Allison shoots a venom-dipped arrow at Erica, who catches it and thinks that, Allison, you're such a loser and I'm gonna steal your boyfriend, but uh-oh, this arrow has been dipped in poison. So Allison wins. Bitch. She gets slay points for that. We learn that Lydia is not the Kanima because she comes out of the house after they see the Kanima, and guess who is missing from the party of who's the Kanima? This man right here. That's the culprit, sir. Get him! Jackson turns out to be the Kanima. Dun dun dun. On to the next episode. So the next episode is called Frenemy, and we pick up this episode right where we left off. Apparently the Kanima is made out of fucking military grade titanium steel, okay? It's made out of whatever that stuff in that cheesy infomercial is made out of. He's made out of that stuff because he gets his neck snapped, he gets slashed by a werewolf, he gets a bunch of bullets put in him and does not slow down. So they're like, this is a bad bitch. Rut-row raggy. Also, Allison is the worst friend in the world because she takes Lydia home after everything that goes on. She doesn't tell her what the fuck was happening. Also, she is like, don't tell anybody about me and Scott and the fact that we're still dating because we're not supposed to be, because don't you remember how you used to be in love but now you're not, but don't you remember when you were? I'm getting word that maybe is not the exact conversation that Allison and Lydia had in the car, but guess what? That's basically the important parts. So, thank you. Lydia is currently having more interactions with the only person that seems to care about her right now, which is this guy that she met outside of the guidance counselor's office, including seeing him in her backyard, because apparently he like lives in the house behind hers. But you don't need to be in my backyard though. You don't need to be in my backyard then. Also important, she has a dog named Prada. Slay. So now that the team knows who the Kanima is, they have to learn more about it if they want to figure out how to stop it. They learn that the Kanima follows certain rules, and these rules are not easily broken. AKA, the Kanima is supposed to be a mythical being that goes after murderers, which now they're trying to put together the people that have already been killed by the Kanima and how they could possibly be murderers, because it doesn't seem like any of those, like, that's actually lining up with what they're learning about the Kanima. Their next idea to try and stop the Kanima is to try and convince Jackson that he is the Kanima. So they track him down to a gay club where it seems like he's going after Danny. Slay, Danny, slay, 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 Danny, slay. I love Danny so much. They stop him, sort of. He doesn't hurt anyone for real. He doesn't kill anyone. But Derek ends up basically slashing his throat. He still doesn't die, by the way, but he does turn back into Jackson. And so Scott and Stiles kidnap him, basically, and are holding him until further notice. Also, shout out to supportive Sheriff Dad Stilinski in this scene.
Not exactly your type of club.
Well, Dad, there's a conversation that we...
You're not gay.
Well, I could be.
Not dressed like that.
So, this episode features a brilliant plan by Dumbelina 1 and Dumbelina 2, aka let's take a police van and put Jackson in it and try and convince him that he's the Kanima, or at least hold him so he can't kill any more people.
Are you dumb? Pardon me? Are you dumb? I think she's dumb.
Okay, this plan is immediately upended because Stiles has taken Jackson's phone and is like texting his parents like, hey, I'm good, I'm staying late at school, love you. And his parents take the phone to the police because apparently Jackson never says love you. So they're immediately exposed. Later, Jackson also gets out of the van because Dumbelina 1 and Dumbelina 3 are fucking in the car instead of keeping an eye on this bitch who can turn into a reptile made out of military-grade titanium steel? Guys, what are we doing? So he escapes, and they're like, fuck, he's gonna go kill someone, but nuh-uh. He's actually completely fine. He's made it to the police station where he's waiting with the sheriff and his dad, who happens to be a state-renowned attorney. Fuck. They get a restraining order put on them, and it's just not looking good for Dumbelina 1 and 2. Later, Allison comes home, and Lydia is waiting there because they were supposed to study together. Remember, Allison is capital T, the worst friend in the world. She mentions to Lydia that she's having trouble with this translating thing. Lydia can read it. Of course she can. She's brilliant. And problems would be solved if we involved her in anything that's going on, but it's fine. And she retranslates the passage that Allison had gotten translated by Mrs. Marin and finds out that it doesn't say that the Kanima is seeking a friend. It says that the Kanima is seeking a master. Rut-row. Raggy. Okay, episode 7. We're in it. We're in it, guys. Okay, this is the meat and potatoes of this show, all right? So just hang in there. Big episode. Kanima Jackson kills another guy, but he doesn't kill the wife of the guy who's pregnant. Later in the episode, we'll find out that whoever is controlling the Kanima kills the wife in the hospital. So now they have 2 murderers, right? They have him, who is this mythological being, but they also have whoever's controlling him who went to the hospital to finish the job. The trio think, as I mentioned, that saving the Kanima has to do with some sort of past trauma. So, as I said, they're trying to figure out more about Jackson and about what has gone on in his life to try and figure out how to save him. At some point in the episode, also, if you see the lighting change, it's getting dark, so bear with me. I'm trying to get this all done one time. let's keep going. At some point in the episode, Dumbelina 1, 2, 3, and 4 end up in detention together, also with Erica, who is trying to get to Jackson, or trying to get on the good side of one of them too, so they can get to Jackson. Also with Matt, who is the creepy photographer guy that I mentioned that loaned Jackson the camera to film himself. Yeah. They all end up in the detention together. At some point, Jackson turns into the Kanima like halfway and attacks everyone and writes on a whiteboard, or writes on a chalkboard that, you know, Dumbelina 1, 2, and 3 need to just stop trying to figure out how to stop him, or else he's gonna kill them all. I love that. I love being threatened. It's literally nails on a chalkboard. I think it's worth noting here specifically that at some point, the Argent family, aka Gerard and Allison's mom, have wormed their way into Beacon Hills High School, specifically to keep an eye on, you know, supernatural happenings there, but also because they still don't trust Allison and Scott's relationship, and the fact that it's like over, which, like, anybody with 2 eyeballs would have enough sense to know that they were not actually done dating, but it's fine. They get exposed a little bit to Allison's mom in this episode, which is why I'm bringing it up. So while the trio plus Jackson, Matt, and Erica are in detention, Lydia once again sees the guy from the guidance counselor and the one that was in her backyard, and she ends up kissing him in like this old abandoned house, but rut-row raggy. Okay, because that's not the guy. He is not some pretty high schooler, all right? He's fucking Peter.
Oh my God, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
You'll be hearing from my lawyers. So anyways, Lydia realizes that the past few weeks, or I guess days or whatever, she's basically just been having hallucinations of this guy who is actually supposed to be like young Peter, because something happened when she got bit by Peter that like connected her to him. I will say the metaphor, the SA metaphor, it's giving, but it doesn't make me any less mad. Anyway, so this is another serious point in the conversation because, as we know, Lydia did not turn into a werewolf. She did not die. She didn't turn into the Kanima. So once again, what the fuck is up, bro? What is going on with her? And now we have this extra layer of Peter being in her head and asking her to do things for him. More on that later. So the next episode has a lot of threads to follow, so just stick with me, but just know that the episode ends at a rave in the Claire Barral fam. Let's get started. Stiles and Sheriff are trying to put together the pieces of the people that have been murdered and realize that they all have a connection of being in Mr. Harris's class, aka the chemistry teacher at Beacon Hills High. So that's where they're starting. Derek, Isaac, and Scott are all trying to figure out how to capture Jackson or the Kanima. And they meet with Deaton, because remember, Deaton knows a lot about this world, and he tells them that they're basically trying to catch 2 people, a puppet and a puppeteer. So they come up with this plan to capture Jackson at this rave, because they know that that's where he's going to kill next. It involves giving him sleepy time, tea, trying to talk to him, and also this like barrier to supernatural entities around the building, which is called Mountain Ash. Mountain Ash is another one of those like Teen Wolf lore mythical elements, and the point is that if you use a Mountain Ash barrier, it's like, you guys know the salt scene from Hocus Pocus? It's like that. Supernatural beings cannot cross it. So their plan is to trap Jackson inside of the warehouse using that, and hopefully lure out whoever is puppeting him as well. Allison also happens to be going to this rave. One, because the hunters also know that the Kanima is targeting someone at this rave, and Allison also gets asked to go by Matt. Remember, the creepy photographer guy that loaned Jackson his camera? So now we have several different plans that are going to be in motion during this one night. So you know, nothing is going to go according to anyone's plan. Things are not looking good, fam. Not only does the Kanima still kill his mark at the rave, Sheriff, who actually has lost his job because it didn't look good that Dumbelina 2 stole a police van and then angered the most powerful attorney in the state. Also, with all of the murders happening and not very much solving, he's just not looking good. So he's lost his job. The girl that the Kanima kills at the rave is not even on the list of being in Mr. Harris's class. So now they don't have a lead. And Scott almost dies because Allison's mom figures out that him and Allison are still dating, and for some reason this just cannot be a thing, so she's gonna kill him, like, just in cold blood. Derek ends up saving Scott, and in the process he actually bites Allison's mom as they're fighting, so she stumbles into Chris's arms, and he's like, fuck, because apparently there's something in hunter lore that means that they can't turn into werewolves, and it's not looking good. I would like to pause here and bring up the mountain ash again, because as I said, they're going to put a barrier around the building, and you have this really interesting sort of conversation about Stiles' character, and you have this introduction of an idea called an emissary, which is essentially like an herbalist, a sort of helper for a wolf pack, and Deaton is actually an emissary. We'll learn more about his emissary-ness later on in the show. But I think that this was originally supposed to set up an emissary storyline for Stiles, and it never pans out. And I just have to say, Jeff, you kind of dropped the ball there. I'm going to be honest with you. This is like one of me and my friend's biggest gripes with the show. It's because it would have just been such an interesting dynamic for his character, but it never really, it doesn't go as far as I think it could have gone. It feels like something that kind of gets dropped and never brought up again. So, as I said, I was going to talk about plot holes as well. I feel like that is kind of one. All right, kids, next episode. Now, this is a Lydia episode, so you know I'm eating it up. It's the Queen's birthday, and you know what that means. She has to have the party of the century. Is she still hallucinating Peter? And does she drug everybody at the party with wolfsbane, induce hallucinations in them, and then eventually resurrect Peter using Derek's alpha powers? Well, yes. And Your Honor, she's just a girl. And here's the thing. If at any point Dumbelina 1, 2, and 3 clued their friend in to what was going on, okay, maybe this wouldn't have happened. That's all I have to say. Lydia Martin stands. Rise up. Other things of note during this episode. Our friend Isaac is starting to shift his trust and allegiance towards Scott a little bit, actually, because he doesn't feel like Derek is preparing them well enough to deal with the hunters. There's a full moon coming, and he doesn't feel prepared. Also, Scott seems to be always trying to do the right thing, and Isaac is really secretly just kind of soft boy central, so he's starting to waver a little bit, is what we're seeing in this episode. Father-son duo is back at it with the detectiveness, all right? And they figure out that all of the victims were not actually in Harris's class, but what they had all in common was that they were all on the swim team. Specifically, the 2006 swim team, specifically under Leahy Sr.'s direction. Also, in this episode, quite sad, Allison's mom is like planning on unaliving herself, and Allison keeps blowing her off and having a conversation because she doesn't know. She doesn't know, okay? But I do think it's really important to point out that of all of the people that are sticklers for whatever rules or code that they're supposed to be following at this point, this guy is a big one of those, okay? Just remember that for later. And Chris, especially in this episode, is really starting to question, kind of like in the last season where he starts to see what Kate is doing to Allison, where he's just kind of like, something about what's going on in this thing that we've been doing for so long doesn't feel right. If it's forcing my wife to choose this, something is not right. Back at Lydia's killer party, Matt, remember the creepy guy photographer that loaned Jackson his camera? He ends up getting tossed in the pool, and who saves him? Because apparently he can't swim. None other than Mr. Kanima himself, Jackson. Huh.
That's suspicious.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's weird.
Now we know who's been controlling him this whole time. It's been Matt. We just don't know why. I would like to give a honorary Oscar to Miss Crystal Reed, aka Allison Argent, for the end of this episode, the scene in the hospital when she finds out that her mom is dead. She was acting, okay? Give her an Oscar now. I would also like to point out another incredibly important scene where we have Matt standing posted up as the party gets broken up with the Kanima swishing its tail by his knees. The creative direction kind of ate. Okay, episode 10. So now we know that Matt is the one controlling the Kanima, but as I mentioned, we don't know why exactly. We're going to learn in this episode through a hostage crisis at the sheriff's station. Dumbelina 2 and Dumbelina 1 put together that Matt is the one controlling the Kanima. They go to the sheriff and are like, hey, Matt's the one that's been killing people. We don't have a motive yet, but let's try and see if we can prove it. They head down to the sheriff's station because, remember, one of the murders was committed by the person controlling the Kanima. Remember the woman in the hospital? The one that the Kanima didn't kill because she was pregnant? After she delivered the baby, the person controlling the Kanima came in and killed her. So they realized that someone at the hospital must have seen Matt coming, leaving at some point. The person that saw Matt at the hospital was none other than Queen Melissa McCall. So they call her to come and get a facial ID. Of course, Matt has figured out what they're up to and is holding them at gunpoint. I love that. And now, since he's quite literally holding them hostage, we get like background lore of Matt, okay? Because what is a villain without his signature monologue? So we learn that Matt, when he was younger, ended up going to Isaac's house to like trade him for some, I don't know, comic or something like that. And while he was there, the swim team, remember the 2006 swim team, was there having a party. They were drinking. Matt ends up getting tossed in the pool and he's drowning. He doesn't know how to swim. Nobody's helping him, even as he's flailing. Leahy Sr. ends up pulling him out of the pool right before he dies and is like, you tell no one. You tell no one. Because he's a bunch of underage students drinking at his house. Quite inappropriate, Mr. Leahy Sr. Matt catches a glimpse of Leahy Sr. at Kate's funeral, and in that moment is just so overcome with rage. Leahy gets killed that night, remember? And at some point he realizes that Jackson, aka the Kanima, is the one that killed him. And so he keeps testing their bond basically by having him go after all of the other swim team members. But remember, the Kanima follows certain rules. And when you break those rules, you face the consequences. One of which being, it seems like Matt is turning into a Kanima himself because he has scales going all up his side. So we learn that what Matt wants out of Scott and by proxy Styles and others is the bestiary. He wants to figure out how to stop what's happened to him. Meanwhile, Allison, who is about to go on another psycho bender, she is planning with the hunters to eliminate Derek. You thought I was going to say the Kanima. Nope. Well, also kind of the Kanima, but mostly Derek. She kind of wants his head on a platter because Gerard has given her a letter from her mom, and it basically implicates Derek and makes it feel like he did everything that he did on purpose. Whatever. The code killed your mom. Not Derek, but whatever. So they also show up at the sheriff's station, and we manage to get away from them. We also get a Kanima werewolf fight in front of Melissa McCall, who is now faced with the fact that her son is something, and that thing exists.
Today. Oh my God, what is that?
after this fight, everybody turns out pretty much okay, except for Matt flees and gets caught in the woods by Gerard, who drowns him and thus gains control of the Kanima. You guys remember what I said season 1 about Teen Wolf writing character deaths with very specific traumatic implications for the characters? Yeah. I think important to note at the end of this episode as well is that Derek overhears a conversation between Gerard and Scott, where Scott is saying that he's done everything that Gerard has asked. What more does he want of him? Very suspicious. What has he been asked to do? And also, to what end is he being asked to do it? Next episode. Okay. Episodes 11 and 12, I'm going to talk about them kind of together because they go together, but also kind of not. That felt like a statement that didn't need to be said. I don't even know what to say about the beginning of this episode besides the fact that it's literally so good. Thinking back to like the parent-teacher conference scene in Teen Wolf, I would say that this episode or this opener has very similar energy. We have Stiles in the guidance counselor's office with Mrs. Marin, and it gives you a really great recap of the season and where the characters are at specifically, but it's also shot so interestingly, and the dialogue is just chef's kiss. They were acting. Where's Dylan O'Brien's Oscar? Thank you. So to catch you up on where the characters are, Matt is dead. Gerard is now controlling Kanima. Sheriff has been given his job back because, well, I don't really know why, but he deserves to have it back anyway, so it's fine. Scott is dealing with all of this fallout. Stiles is kind of estranged from his dad right now. Stiles is kind of estranged from Scott right now. Scott is not really talking with his mom because his mom is like, what the fuck's going on? Allison is also still struggling. Remember, Gerard is master of the Kanima now. He shows up in Scott's house and like takes his mom hostage or whatever, and is essentially saying, give me what I want or else I'm going to kill everyone that you love. That's fun. That's cool. That's cool. No, that's fine. You have what you want. You get what you want. Part of what he wants, is to use the Kanima for what he believes that it's made for, a weapon of vengeance to avenge his daughter, Kate, who had been killed the previous season by, not Derek, but he's like, Derek's close enough. Derek will work in a pinch. Speaking of Derek, his pack is falling apart. Erica and Boyd, who we have not talked about too much this season, but let's be honest, they don't get that much screen time. They are afraid of everything that's going on. Quite reasonably. So they want to skip town, and Isaac is kind of torn in between leaving town with them or staying. Spoiler alert, he decides to stay. That's my boy, because he's here to win. Love that. Lacrosse metaphor. They will play lacrosse at the end of this episode. So, it's barely a metaphor. It's just what they do. At the lacrosse game, Gerard threatens to kill someone on the field if Scott does not give up Derek before the game timer runs out. But more importantly than that, okay, number 24, Stiles Stalinsky, finally gets to play lacrosse. And he does a great job. Him, absolutely slaying the lacrosse field is set to the ending sort of riff of Run Boy Run. It's good. It's good. Oh, also, remember how Peter was resurrected a couple of episodes ago? Yeah, so he's back and dropping one-liners and trying to convince Derek to help him via giving him information about the Kanima, which apparently he knows. Sure. Erica and Boyd actually end up running during the lacrosse game, and they get captured by the Argents. Correction. They get captured by psychopath Allison Argent, who is basically shooting them full of arrows and torturing them and almost kills them until she gets stopped by Chris, who is like, who are you and what have you done with my daughter? He is very scared. He is questioning his faith in the code. At the end of this episode, as Gerard promised, he ends up killing someone on the field, but not anyone that you thought it would be. Not Lydia, not Scott's mom, not Sheriff, not Stiles. He actually has Jackson claw himself, so he is presumed dead. Rut-row raggy. Also, Stiles has gone missing. And that's where we end that episode. Next episode comes up, and it just picks up exactly where we left off. We end up getting into the ambulance with presumed dead Jackson and Melissa, who rides with them to the hospital. And at the hospital, she finds that Jackson is like secreting that paralytic goo and essentially encasing himself in a cocoon. It's not looking good, guys. Derek and Peter and later Scott learn that this is like a chrysalis stage to metamorphosis to something real bad. So they're like, ruh-roh, Raggy, we need to get Jackson out of here. He cannot turn into whatever this thing is. And remember, Peter thinks he knows how to save Jackson. True love. Or something like that. Meanwhile, let's all take a deep breath before I talk about this. Stiles had gone missing at the end of the episode, right? Turns out that he had been kidnapped by this bitch and was beat up by this bitch in order to like send Scott a message or something like that. Yeah, sorry, I really can't talk about it. I have to focus all of my energy into killing this man in my mind. While he's in the Argent's basement, he sees these two who have been strung up like a Christmas tree and are being tortured. They're hoping that they'll give information on Derek. Whatever. It's just not looking good for the guys. And the Claire, we are not all fans. Remember, this bitch, that bitch are trying to get that bitch out of the hospital. And while they do, they end up running into Chris, who, gasp, isn't here to stop them, but gasp is here to help them. Okay, Chris. He is not liking what he's seeing here. He's seeing remnants of Kate. He's seeing echoes of Kate. And he's not trusting whatever the fuck is going on here. And he knows that he's involved somehow. He just can't figure out how, but he knows whatever his plan is bad. So he is willing to help unlikely alliances. He's willing to help Scott and Isaac get Jackson to Derek and hopefully try and save him to stop whatever the fuck Gerard is planning. They do stop the metamorphosis, but Jackson does still turn into the Kanima. Gerard shows up, Allison shows up, and now we get a Hunter Kanima werewolf fight with the main theme playing in the background.
That was legitness.
Yeah, they ate. And they knew that they ate. That's why they put the main theme in the background. Thank you. Gerard is controlling the Kanima, but he's actually only here for one thing. Okay? Remember when he told Scott to give him Derek? He doesn't want to kill him. At least not yet. What he needs is for Derek to bite him so he'll turn into a werewolf, so he'll be cured of the cancer that is currently killing him. Now, you remember when, like, 4 episodes ago, Allison's mom got bit by this same werewolf, and Gerard was pretty adamant that she had to go? Oh, so you're telling me, not only does he suck, but he's a hypocrite. Oh, okay. No. Okay. Scott complies, gets Derek to bite him. But guess what? Scott had a plan. Guys, we were so proud of Scott when this happened, because you know that boy has never had a thought in his whole life. Scott's plan, because he knew what Gerard was planning, he knew that he was dying, he switched out the pills that Gerard takes every day with pills filled with mountain ash. So when Derek bit him, his body completely rejected the bite. He starts spewing black goo. It's quite gross. Everybody say thanks, Scott, but also not thanks, Scott, because Gerard isn't dead. He's just kind of incapacitated, so he tells the Kanima to kill all of them. Luckily for them, King Stiles Stilinski comes in with Queen Lydia, who went to go see Stiles after, Jackson is assumed to be dead. They come busting in, riding in good old Roscoe, and hit Jackson, knock him down. Lydia hops out of the car, holds up the key, the house key that Jackson had been asking for this whole time, and gives it to him. There's this whole mythology of love and of calling a werewolf by its Christian name and, resolving the past trauma that all combines in this moment, and Jackson is turned into the werewolf that he's supposed to be and not this very scary reptilian beast Hooray! Derek and Peter, who's been lurking in the background this whole time, for some reason shoved their claws into Jackson. Still no idea why they do this. If anybody knows why they do this, please explain to me. Lydia is now in to everything because, you know, can't keep her out anymore. Erica and Boyd, they end up getting freed from the Argent's house. We'll check back in with them in just a second. Allison is out of her psycho era, apparently. Chris is happy for that. Scott and Stiles are, you know, hanging out in the background. Glad that Jackson's okay. And that's pretty much the end of this season. That's the end of the major plot points. Of course, at the end of the season, they have to set up for season 3, which we get in a few scenes. As I mentioned, Erica and Boyd have escaped the Argents, but while they're running through the woods, they hear howls and they get cornered by what we are led to assume are a pack of werewolves. We don't know anything about them. Later on, we learn in a scene with Derek and Isaac that there is a pack of werewolves called the Alpha Pack, which are a pack of alphas. That's cool. And they're the ones that are supposed to be in town. They're the ones that have captured Erica and Boyd. These two cannot catch a break, bro. And now, of course, they're threatening Derek and, by proxy, Isaac and Peter too. Scott and Stiles have a cute little moment of playing lacrosse together. Scott and Allison break up. Thank God. Jackson is not in season 3, which kind of feels like a spoiler, but we just assume that he's like chilling. I don't know, I think I would leave town after everything that happened as well. So Gerard disappears. We don't know where he goes. And that's pretty much everyone at the end of season 2.
I said no wolf powers.
All right, guys. And that is Teen Wolf seasons 1 and 2. Thank you so much for hanging out for this entire journey. This has been so fun. I finished putting this together and was like about to re-record for this part of it, and I just was so excited. I hope that you'll stick around during the perhaps months that it takes me to get to season 3 and 4. I think those are the 2 that I'm gonna plan to put together, and then we'll talk about 5 and 6. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know, I don't know. If you like this video, it took a lot of work, so I would appreciate, this is the first time I've ever said this shit, if you want to give me a like or subscribe, give me a little comment, share with friends. Who do you know that was obsessed with this show in the early 2000s, the late 2010s? I wasn't. I actually watched this in my college days, so I was late to it, but it has quickly become very important to me. So I'm glad that we got to talk about it. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. I've got other videos on this channel if you want to check them out. They're definitely not as long as this one, so, you know, enjoy. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
He begged me to stay. Babe, I'm not staying, I just wanna play. In the party, he just wanna romp. Baby,